All right, let's if you haven't saved, do a save, and let's go to our browser to check if everything works. So I'm just going to do a quick check here on my what's it called, FireStore here, and we can see status is all incomplete, 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 and I'm just going to check this one here. This is the with the one for 10, so that's the bottom one. So if you have everything as I have and you click this, you can see it switches between the stages and also changes the color because we did a vbind for the class. So we have the orange here, we have green, so if I go back here this should now be complete, and if I go back to, let's go orange, it should be in progress. If I can do this really fast, I couldn't. We can see the actual switch, or you can open them side by side in your browser and you can actually see the real-time changes. And this is also where I think like FireStore and Firebase is super cool, because we can do things like this instantaneously, and we can do this multiple people can do this as well. But now we know this works, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our archive. So we can also click this archive and have it disappear from here, so we can actually remove it so it isn't there once we are like done with it. So after our switch case here, right, our switch stage, after this, we're going to create a new method, and we're going to call this, let's call this archive items. Where did my mouse go? There we go. Archive. Did I spell it correctly? Nope, within V, there we go. Archive order item. And let's set up everything and have our comma separation here so there's no red errors. Now we're also going to pass in the ID as we did before with our, because of course we need to make sure that we're, like we do with the delete down here, we need to make sure we're using, clicking the correct one, of course. So we're using DB orders again, so we're getting the database. We're using the duck, so we get this. And if you remember, we are going to do exactly the same as above, almost. So the ID we're passing in, we're going to do an update. And in here, then we're going to change a few things. So in our store, we added two new things. We added archive and we added store order, right? So we need to change these things up so we can use them both to calculate and also to kind of remove them from the view, because we're going to be using the vif a little bit later to have them disappear from our table over there. So we're going to pass in our object here. The first thing we're going to do is the archive, spell it correctly this time. This we're going to change from false to true because we click the archive button, right? That makes sense. We're also going to change the store order to true. And this will actually make it disappear, and this will do the calculations well. So these are the two things we need to change once we click our, order archive items. And we need to do like we have before, we need to have a promise here, and inside the promise we're using a feta annotation like this. So this is what we need for our the first part of this one. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go back up to our archive button. Here we go. So right now, or this is like the placebo one because we copied this from the other one, we need to change this to archive order items, I think it was called, yes. And instead of passing all the item in, we only want the item and the ID of it, right? So this will click save. Let's go back to our browser and let's just check with big or nothing. That's the last one here. So right now it's set to true and true. So if we click this, it did nothing. So we have a small error in our code. Just did a pause, so cheating, and I figured out what the issue was. Because maybe you spotted already, they're already set to true because I did a test on the other one. So what I need to do real quick is I just need to go to here. I'm just going to add these two and a lot of those and do a checkout. So we have a fresh one in our orders down here. Which one was it? This one, right? I think it's this one. So right now we have a new one that's sated with, let's find it, false. Here we go. So let's just separate this. So we have false, false for these two, right? And this is the one with that I just set up here with that one. Now, if I click this button here, this should change to true and true. So I actually have an error here. So as you can see, I have archive with an EE. So I did an error probably in my story here. Did I spell this incorrectly? I did. So see, I suck at spelling that one, I don't know why. So if you did the same in your store, make sure that you have it correctly set up here, archive, like this, and not the moronic way I did it. All right, so we know that now it works, and that's the first thing we need to do. So now we are actually changing, updating the status field for these one here, so we can use this in our next following videos to remove them from view and do a small calculation for total price and everything.